It's my extreme pleasure, and welcome to our Meet Our Member series, to go ahead and introduce Steve Hooper, the president of financial services at Tiphaus. So, welcome.
Thanks, Rob. Pleasure to be with you, and excited to be one of the newer members of the IFBTA.
I'm reminded, it's sort of deja vu that things sort of come around every so often. And tips have always been something that people debate in the United States,
Mhm.
because other countries don't do tips, or they do 3% or just round up, or they do a service charge. Now, do you see any of those types of trends hitting the US, in here?
Yeah, service charge is definitely a growing tool in different places, especially being utilized. There's a commission model that's kind of growing in certain higher end full service restaurants and that kind of thing. And so service charge gets used a lot to leverage the commission based model for service staff and that kind of thing. So
Right.
there's a few different models that are being played with out there for sure.
Do you want to explain that? Because I've gone to a couple seminars where they actually had an attorney from Seattle who came in and talked about commission-based models.
Yeah, so I mean, it's a commission based on the value of the check. So it really incentivizes servers on the upsell, get another drink, higher end bottle of wine, all of that kind of stuff. And then a piece of it does get shared to the back of house, but it's just a straight commission. And most places, because it's a commission based model, there's an exemption in most minimum wage laws around commission based models. So
Right.
places will pay the restaurant may be paying $1 an hour for service staff, but their commissions are obviously in, again, higher end restaurants, mind you, right? This isn't,
And it's a way around looking at the minimum wage.
yep, exactly. So
Is this something that falls under Tip House?
yep, it's something that we're looking into bolting on. There aren't quite enough big restaurant groups doing it, but we're working with a couple to identify exactly how to implement that.
Well, as I think about it, the formula isn't any different when you're dealing. So again, an employee first model
Yep.
where you're looking at providing information that is usable to the employee, getting them paid faster, whether they are pooling, whether they are doing a service charge, whether they're doing commission, it really is all the same thing. It's, performance based pay, if you want to look at it that way.
Yep.
And it has to be distributed, it has to be accounted for. And so it's really the same model. So in some ways, Tip House is, sort of blazing the way for the future to make it easier, because it's not a traditional just point of sale model.
Correct. Yep. Exactly. That's and the nice thing about to your point about the other verticals we're touching, it's anywhere a tip is happening, we're able to help manage that, all these issues associated with it. One of the things we're able to do is shift some liability off of the books of the restaurants, right? If you're calculating tips in a spreadsheet internally and there's an error in that spreadsheet, you're liable for all of those issues, right? Like, and a plaintiff's attorney is going to have a field day with a spreadsheet with an error in it. Whereas, if you set it and forget it inside of our platform, it's going to be right. And if somehow we screw up, that's on us, and that's a business operations problem, not a wage and hour claim. So, like the shifting of liability is something we've noticed, particularly larger restaurant groups appreciating as like, oh, we don't want to deal with this problem anymore. Tip House, you handle it, please.
Larger restaurant groups, but also larger restaurant groups with franchisees,
Yes, that as well.
because franchisees are not always going to be, the sophisticated one who's operated a bunch of restaurants before.
Right.
And yet this is very critical to how they run their operations.
Yep. We've been working with a number of those recently.
So I'm going to guess that there's some areas that you never expected to get into, because we are pointing out that tipping is now everywhere. I'm sure that nobody ever thought that they were going to be tipping, in a quick service or a sandwich shop or something, but they are. It really has become part of the income stream, especially as there's cost pressures on the operator in doing their piece. It becomes a way also to help the operator out, to even it out, and people are paying for performance, right?
Yep. No, very, very much so. And that's, as I mentioned about the increasing minimum wages, it used to be, not all that long ago, the front of house made significantly less per hour than the back of house, right? You pay your front of house $7, $8, $9, $10
Absolutely.
an hour. You pay your back of house 20, 25, whatever it was. Well, now those have come into line. And with a minimum wage like here in Seattle, where I'm sitting right now, our minimum wage in Seattle is $19.97 an hour this year. It'll probably go up over $20 next year. And so like the math, you can't pay your front of house 20 and your back of house some other much bigger number. The math just breaks inside the restaurant. And so the use of the tip pool or the service charge or whatever model you're using
Right.
is how you differentiate and get more pay into the hands of the different folks in the restaurant.
And it gets people to want to work all areas, of the operation as well, rather than picking one or another.
Yep.
And by the way, as you go into hotels and you go into cruise ships and you go into other areas like that, that's going to be an even bigger factor, because you've got the food and beverage, you got the rooms, you got the laundry, you got all of them, right? Housekeeping. So
And it
there's
creates, it creates a team dynamic, right? Like, you're all in it together, right? If the food isn't coming out, there's always been a front of house, back of house, butting of heads in the full service world. This helps break that down. We've noticed like operators do see a benefit on that side. The other thing we've noticed
So do you
from a data perspective, so we have the daily pay solution as it relates to tips, right? We can pay out tips
Right.
daily. Operators that have turned on that function inside a Tiphaus have seen anywhere between a 20 and 30% decrease in turnover.
I would bet.
So
I would bet
the job just becomes stickier. They feel better about it. They're getting paid more consistently and more frequently. So I think that's something that we've noticed just in our own data, that people aren't turning over as fast once they turn on the daily pay.
So are you educating the market, or do you find that the market understands this completely? Look, you were an operator.
Mm-hmm.
You saw the need for this, that you were, using it.
Mm-hmm.
You saw it. Not everybody always sees it. And sometimes people are thrown into new things like online ordering and delivery. You might have been thrown into, right? During the bad part of COVID.
Yep.
So I heard you say good part. I haven't figured out what the good part of COVID is yet. But anyway, but it created opportunities for sure.
Yep.
So, do you see that operators actually understand the need to have a specifically focused partner in this area?
So it depends. It's operator by operator in a lot of cases. Some of them have the acute need when you're talking to them. They're like, one group might be bringing cash into their restaurant every day because credit cards are 95% of the thing. There's just not enough cash in the restaurant. So they have to actually bring cash in to pay it out every day because they're still on that model. And so they have a very acute need, the safety related to cash, all of those kinds of issues. And so they want to move to a digital, payout.
Absolutely.
If I get to talk to a controller that has to deal with tip spreadsheets and that kind of stuff, the sale takes about 5 minutes. They understand pretty quickly how we add value and how it makes their life.
I'd say it takes 20 seconds, but okay. 5 minutes is a long time. If you have to explain to them the need, they already should have figured out that does not work.
Yeah, I'll say 5 minutes into the demo, they see that it works. Let's say that one. They get it beforehand in a lot of cases.
It took 20 seconds to get in the door and 5 minutes to make the sale. I got that. Go.
And so we but other restaurant groups, they're like, oh no, we're fine. But all that tells me is I'm not talking to the right person yet. They don't feel the pain point. Somebody in the organization has the pain point related to tips. You just got to figure out who that person is.
I'd really like to thank, and it's been a great conversation with Steve Hooper, the President of Financial Services for Tiphaus, and welcome as a industry supporter of the IFBTA.
Thanks, Rob.